Before bonuses were announced, my boss fired me, saying bonuses are wasted on high school graduates. Holding back my laughter, I asked, "Is it okay for me to quit today?" The next day, after I resigned right away, my boss freaked out and called me nonstop. He chuckled, crudely repeating that bonuses are wasted on high school graduates. This person has consistently hindered my work in the past, and today he pushed me to resign. He remains oblivious to the fact that it's actually him who will be inconvenienced by my departure. Suppressing my laughter, I signed the resignation letter. My name is George, 27 years old. Having lost my parents, I was raised by my maternal grandparents. After graduating from high school, I joined a company that develops and sells pet food. It wasn't a large company, but they actively hired people like me with a high school education. However, 5 years after I started working there, the research department developed a pet food specifically for senior cats and dogs. The product gained popularity, and the company experienced rapid growth. As a member of the sales department, I became incredibly busy running around to meet clients every day. With the company's expansion, the number of job applicants increased, and high school graduates like me became less common. Compared to my college-educated colleagues, I lagged behind in terms of education and struggled with tasks that required intellectual effort. Consequently, it wasn't uncommon for highly capable college graduates who joined after me to get promoted ahead of me. "But I do love this company," I murmured while feeding my grandparents' elderly cat with our own brand of food. Thanks to our company's pet food, my cat remained lively even after turning 15. Even though I can't seem to get promoted, I still want to continue working at this company. Despite not having an impressive educational background, I work as a salesperson who relies on my own efforts. However, Jack, our department head who was headhunted from another company a few years ago, seems to dislike my approach. Initially, he worked in the materials procurement department, but when a vacancy opened up for the sales department's manager position, he was transferred. Jack, with his impressive educational background, seems to take pride in it. Consequently, he disapproves of me, a high school graduate, achieving decent results. "I don't need subordinates without education. Can you transfer to another department?" When Jack is irritated, he casually makes remarks like this to me. Although he's not always sarcastic, when he's in a bad mood, his snide comments can be quite harsh. So I tried to avoid getting too close, not only with me, but he also tends to be sarcastic toward others who don't meet his high standards. It seems I'm not the only victim of his behavior. One day I exclaimed, "I did it. We're close to finalizing a contract with a major corporation." The sales team congratulated me with smiles. This contract with the company has been a long-awaited opportunity. And now, finally, discussions have begun toward formalizing the agreement. Although it wasn't official yet, we needed a few more meetings, but at this rate, we could push through to contract completion. "I'll do my best to take it all the way to the final agreement," I declared, encouraged by my colleagues' supportive smiles. However, Jack looked at me with an inscrutable expression. The next day, as I checked my belongings before heading to a client meeting, I noticed my handkerchief was missing from my bag. More small items disappeared, making me suspicious. Then my wallet vanished. Panic set in. With the help of my colleagues, we searched and found my wallet in the company's trash bin. "Did you accidentally throw it away? Making a big fuss over your own mistake is quite a nuisance," Jack said, his face showing clear exasperation. But I didn't miss the fleeting hint of amusement in Jack's expression. It seemed like Jack might be the culprit. That split-second twisted smile made me suspect as much. Since that day, Jack's harassment has only worsened. "Finish this task by tomorrow." But it's already past working hours. "Are you defying me?" He glared at me sharply. Even though I was getting ready to leave, Jack piled a massive amount of work on me. I ended up working overtime almost every day because of this. Even when I completed my task diligently, Jack didn't offer any gratitude. Instead, he called me out for minor mistakes and scolded me relentlessly. Some sympathetic coworkers tried to intervene, but after Jack's threatening words, no one dared to help me anymore. "It seems you want to experience the same fate as this person," he sneered. Since then, I've been on my own. While enduring Jack's snide remarks and reprimands, I continued negotiations with a well-known corporation. The contract was substantial, requiring thorough preparation. However, on the day of our final meeting, disaster struck. I realized that the carefully prepared distribution materials were inexplicably missing from my bag. Smirking, Jack approached me. "Oh, were those important? They seemed so shabby. I took them for trash." Stunned, I listened as Jack continued. "This might ruin the contract. A significant deal like this was probably beyond your capabilities anyway." Did Jack prioritize surpassing me over the company's success? Suppressing my anger, I ignored his gloating expression and rushed out with the materials. I had, fortunately, a nearly identical PowerPoint presentation, although I initially created it in PowerPoint, had been remade in print format for better readability. In the end, we successfully navigated the final meeting and the contract was signed. This might lead to a promotion with a bonus coming up. "Maybe I'll treat my grandparents to dinner," Jack grumbled, while reluctantly acknowledging my achievement. However, a week after finalizing the contract, on the eve of bonus payment day, I arrived at work feeling excited. But as soon as I got there, Jack summoned me. He accused me of embezzlement, claiming that I had secured a contract with another company at an unusually low price and pocketed the difference. "I haven't done anything like that," I protested. Jack responded, "We have substantial evidence. If this gets out, you'll be fired for sure. But if you sign the resignation letter now, I'll take responsibility and cover it up. You're a criminal for embezzlement, but you're also the one who secured the deal with a major corporation." With that, Jack handed me a prepared resignation letter and my salary statement. He lifted the salary statement, tore it up right in front of me, and sneered, "Bonuses are wasted on high school graduates." Then he chuckled crudely. "I never embezzled anything." The evidence Jack showed me was cleverly fabricated but entirely baseless. He must have prepared it to discredit me, seizing the opportunity on the eve of bonuses to lure me into this trap. I knew he disliked me, but I never expected it to go this far. "After you leave, I'll take over as the person in charge of that contract. Rest assured, I'll handle it responsibly. So go ahead and quit the company." It seems that Jack's intention was to take credit for my achievements. Can there really be people in this world who do such unbelievable things? Faced with this shocking reality, I couldn't help but feel like laughing. However, if I laughed here, Jack would probably consider me abnormal. "Is it okay for me to leave today?" I asked. "Yeah, you can quit today," Jack said. "Understood? I'll sign the resignation letter." Seeing me trembling as I tried to hold back my laughter, Jack misunderstood my agitation as frustration. With a cheerful demeanor, he offered me his pen. "You can borrow my pen." I returned to my desk, signed a resignation letter, and quickly packed my belongings. While other employees looked surprised, I didn't respond to their expressions. As I left the sales department with my packed belongings, Jack saw me off with a lecturer's grin. The day before bonuses were announced, my boss fired me, saying that bonuses are wasted on high school graduates. Holding back my laughter, I asked, "Is it okay for me to quit today?" The next day, after resigning immediately, my boss panicked and called me incessantly. The day after I quit, I was at home feeling lost. I had already explained everything to my grandmother. My grandfather, however, scolded me, wondering why I hadn't consulted with him. As for Jack, I figured it was my problem. It wasn't uncommon to be disliked by someone at work, so I decided not to make a big fuss and didn't consult anyone. Neither my co-workers nor my family. When I left that office, I felt a mix of relief and anger. I had spent years working hard, giving my best to contribute to a place I genuinely cared about. And there I was, a mere high school graduate, dismissed with disdain just before bonuses were handed out, treated like trash. As much as I didn't want to admit it, it hurt. It was as if my worth boiled down to a diploma I didn't have. The next day, as I tried to clear my mind, my phone started ringing. I ignored the first call. Then came 4, 5, 6 more calls, all from the office, all from Jack. Just seeing his name flash on my screen made my blood boil. I knew exactly why he was calling. I'd left behind a string of clients, ongoing contracts, negotiations that were nearing their close. Jack was now in an uncomfortable spot, having no one to handle the projects he never bothered to fully understand. That was his talent, parading around the office like an important boss without even knowing the ins and outs of the tasks we were running. On the third day, my grandmother came into the room with the phone in her hand, telling me it was the office. I was irked at his nerve. He hadn't respected my decision to leave, nor my family's space. I took a deep breath, picked up the call, and before I could say anything, Jack's desperate voice started. "George, we need to resolve the issues with the core pet contract. Without you, they're threatening to terminate the agreement. And the contract with the vet clinics? You know those clients trust you." I could hear the panic in his voice, and it almost made me laugh. With a calmness I didn't know I had, I replied, "Jack, you were there, remember? You were the one who said I was worthless. If that's the case, you're more than capable of handling everything alone. Good luck." "George, this isn't the time for resentment," he retorted, trying to hide his irritation. "We need you to finalize these negotiations. Consider this. It's for the good of the company." "The good of the company?" I bit back a laugh and asked, "Was the good of the company what you had in mind when you made up all those lies? When you tore out my pay stub in my face and laughed?" His voice grew colder, but still held a note of pleading. "That's in the past. Let's be professional." "Professional?" I had to stop myself from throwing all his actions back in his face. But then an idea struck me. I knew Jack was desperate, and I knew how much he hated being in a vulnerable position, especially with me. He always saw himself as superior, the educated, qualified manager. And now he was dependent on me, the high school graduate. This role reversal was too satisfying to resist. "You want me back, Jack?" I asked, feigning interest. "Very well. We can talk about financial compensation. I think it's fair, given the stress and damage you've caused me." There was silence on the other end. He knew I was serious, and he also knew the company would probably agree, as long as he bore the cost of this compensation. I knew he didn't care about the company and that all this was happening because he wanted to maintain his image and stay in control. Finally, he responded, "All right, George, come to the office tomorrow, and we'll talk." I went because I knew he owed me more than just a conversation. I arrived with the same grin he had worn when he humiliated me and sat calmly in the meeting room. He started with a ridiculous proposal, talking about reduced bonuses and even hinting that I shouldn't expect much because of my limited education. Oh, how I wanted to explode, but I kept my cool. "Jack, your offer is a joke. And you know it. The company is on the brink of losing $1 million contract due to incompetence that you tried to hide. I did a favor for you. Now it's my turn to demand something fair, and honestly, I'm feeling generous." He took a deep breath, cornered. After much back and forth, with him trying and failing to intimidate me, Jack finally agreed to my terms. A sum well above the bonus he had torn up and a recommendation letter signed by him, praising my work, listing my achievements, and backing me up for future opportunities. It must have been painful for him. He signed the document with a shaky hand, as if he were signing his own sentence. As I put away the letter and check, I made sure to add, "Oh, and just so you know, I'm not coming back to work here. Consider this our final goodbye." I saw the panic in his eyes. Jack was stuck, no choice, no way out. The same man who threw me out thinking he'd never need me again was now watching me walk away with everything he had tried to steal. The humiliation on his face was exactly what I needed to feel like. Finally, after everything I had endured, I was the one in control. I left the company with my head held high, knowing that this time, I had won. In the days that followed, I realized that the sense of victory still hadn't filled the emptiness left by years of humiliation. Jack had underestimated me, trampled on my work, and disrespected my effort. Even though I'd come out on top, something still nagged at me. I knew he'd continue in that office, probably taking credit for the contracts I'd secured, and worse, keeping his position of superiority. The thought of him walking away unscathed, as if nothing had happened, gnawed at me. I decided that if I truly wanted closure, I had to go further. And I had an ace up my sleeve, my knowledge of the company. I knew every process, who did what, and where the weaknesses were. But, above all, I knew that clients trusted me, not Jack. He was an empty shell of a manager, someone who never truly engaged with projects, while I had built real relationships with each client I served. With that in mind, I set my plan into motion. First, I reached out to Corpet, the major client whose contract I had sealed. I was direct. I explained that I had left the company, but because they had always trusted me, I felt a responsibility to warn them about the current management. I chose my words carefully, without being too accusatory. I merely suggested that Jack, my former boss, wasn't fully prepared to handle the complexities of the contract, and that issues could arise. Their response was nearly immediate. The next day, I received a call from Corpet's representative concerned about the situation. He said they were considering re-evaluating the partnership if Jack was indeed unable to maintain the standards I had established. This was progress, a step closer to what I wanted. Next, I contacted some of the smaller companies with whom I had also built strong relationships. I made sure to clarify that my departure from the company hadn't been entirely voluntary and that I feared the quality of services might suffer. I spoke cautiously, but I knew that planting this seed of doubt would undermine their confidence in Jack. While these companies weren't as significant as Corpet, together, they held contracts that maintained the company's cash flow steady. The results began to show in a matter of days. I received messages from former colleagues saying Jack was starting to panic. Clients were backing away, questioning decisions, and more importantly, doubting his ability to maintain service quality. The company, once seen in a positive light by all these partners, was now starting to look unstable, and Jack's figure as manager only made things worse. But my plan didn't stop there. I knew that beneath the surface of this big company image, there were a lot of shady practices Jack had been covering up for years. From my time working closely with him, I'd learned that he was careless with certain internal processes, especially with using company resources for his personal interests. He loved to attend expensive and luxurious events, always claiming it was for networking purposes. But in reality, he did little, if anything, useful at these events. I gathered evidence, documents showing clear instances of misused funds. And when I had everything prepared, I sent a dossier to the company's board. The impact was devastating. A few days later, I heard that Jack had been temporarily suspended for an internal investigation. He had been forced out, no longer as the untouchable boss, but as an employee under suspicion of misconduct. I knew his pride was in ruins. The image he had carefully built over the years was shattered, and word was already spreading. The same companies he once impressed with his flashy presence were now questioning his integrity. I watched it all unfold from a distance, in silence. Each new piece of information about Jack's downfall brought me a relief I didn't even know I needed. It wasn't just about revenge, but about justice finally being served. A few weeks later, I received an unexpected offer. Corpet, aware of my departure and of the role I'd played in securing the contract, offered me a position on their own sales team. They appreciated my professionalism and were confident I could replicate the same results with them. Accepting this offer felt like confirmation that, despite the years of disrespect and underestimation, my value was recognized. I accepted the position with a sense of fulfillment I never thought I'd feel. On my first day at Corpet, as I walked through the halls of the new office, I ran into a former colleague who happened to be visiting. He told me that Jack had been permanently fired. With the mounting evidence and clients distancing themselves, the board had no choice but to let him go. He left the company with no support, no bright future ahead, and, ironically, he'd now have to look for new jobs labeled as incompetent and dishonest. I looked at my colleague and just smiled. This was the ending Jack deserved. After years of humiliation and leaning on a diploma to stomp on those he considered beneath him, he was now alone, disgraced, and exposed.